So I've made this video a few times and I kind of just wanted to make it again. Today we're going to be talking about breeding shrimp. There's not a whole lot to breeding shrimp, but I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, and we've been breeding a ton of Neocaridina shrimp here in the fish room. So let's just start off by having a look at one of many tanks full of hundreds of Neocaridina shrimp. If you come in close, have a look at this. If you have a look on this piece of wood, these are all red cherry shrimp. Look at how many shrimp are just on this single log. So this is a peppermint bristlenose breeding tank. You can see there's a little baby peppermint down here. This tank is actually not designed to breed shrimp. I put the shrimp in here and the initial goal with the shrimp was to clean the tank. Ever since, this has become more of a shrimp breeding tank than it has a peppermint bristlenose breeding tank. So we've got this tank full of shrimp. Even up here, this is a L397 breeding tank, and these are all yellow shrimp, but look at the top near that crushed coral. It's just chocked full of yellow, orange, all sorts of shrimp in here. You can see babies here, like if you're getting close. So those are all just baby shrimp there. Even up in this tank, we haven't cleaned it up, but this is a blue/carbon really breeding tank. There's like at least 150 in there. And that's, you know, in a pretty quick period of time. So yeah, look at all those shrimp, man, it's crazy. I think one more shrimp tank I gotta show you, just to show you that it's super easy. Let's go look at that 4-footer. We've been making so many shrimp here. It's gonna be harder to see these ones, but I added like 10 in here, literally probably about 2 months ago. This tank has gone insane full of shrimp. This whole piece of driftwood's covered in red cherry shrimp. If you come in, I mean, it's a really dirty tank, but look, just look at them all. You can see them everywhere, some big mamas, and they're all buried. And yeah, we've been making a ton of shrimp here. So today, I'm gonna kind of walk you through how I breed these shrimp. So like I said, there's two main types of shrimp. We've got Neocaridinas and Caridinas. Caridinas are like your crystal shrimp, and they're the really colorful, super pretty ones that a lot of people would like to breed, myself included. I haven't dabbled much with Caridinas. I've got a few fish room tours you guys can go check out, like visiting Glenn's fish room where we talk about that. I treat them as completely different types of shrimp. Neocaridinas, which are your cherry shrimp, are much easier to breed, as I've shown you. So today we're just gonna kind of talk about how to breed them. So when it comes to the shrimp, like I said, there's honestly not a whole lot to it. I think the most important thing for any shrimp is to start off with quite a substantial number. At the moment, just because we have so many, I've been selling bunches of 20 shrimp for $50. That's pretty cheap here. Like you can see, we've got lots and lots of shrimp, so there's no shortage of them. But that's kind of what I'd recommend starting out with. So if you're looking at getting cherry shrimp, set up a tank. Doesn't have to have anything in it. Like if you look over here, these tanks over here are the perfect example of how to set up cherry shrimp tanks. No, they're not clean either. Yeah, we'll give this a wipe down so you can just see inside. I think, let's look at this one. I've done a video on these too. This is an experiment I'm doing, being crossbreeding shrimp, but this is a perfect example of how to set up a breeding tank if you're really wanting to do it. I've learned a lot from this experiment on how to breed shrimp. All right, so if you have a look in here, look at the floor of this tank. This is insane. It's just coated with shrimp. So this was originally a blue and orange mix of shrimp, and you can see the different colors that have come out. It's quite crazy. But this is how I'd set up my tank. So what we have here is just a 20-gallon tank, 80 liters. You can do this in a small tank. You can do it in a big 4-foot tank. Doesn't matter. In here, the only thing I have is a sponge filter. I have a light, shrimp need light, and I've got the sponge filter going at a pretty decent rate. What I've found for the optimal shrimp breeding is shrimp actually like flow. I think I've got some stupid video out there saying keep the flow low. I found the shrimp's body is actually designed for flow. If you look at the aerodynamics of shrimp, they're actually very aerodynamic. I saw this weird meme out there, the aerodynamics of a lobster. Shrimp have the same body. They're designed to sit in the flow and capture things going past. So what I've found is sponge filter is probably the best, but just any kind of filter, something that won't suck up babies. So a sponge filter is great, a light, and decent aeration. I think the aeration helps a lot with the oxygenation of the water. And when there's high oxygenation in the water, I find the shrimp are much more active and they breed quicker. So that's like one of the things I've noticed about shrimp. Then, like I was talking about before, we sell 20 packs of shrimp on our website, but you can buy your shrimp anywhere, it doesn't really matter. Always start out with a big number. I've found shrimp don't like to be moved, they don't like to be toyed with at all. The biggest thing for shrimp is keeping them stable. So when you get shrimp from someone else, even myself included, our shrimp are super hardy, super healthy. The chances are if you buy 5, firstly, you've got a lower chance of getting mixed sexes, so males and females. And if you lose 1 or 2 shrimp, you're instantly battling uphill. But if you buy like 20 and you lose 5, you've still got 15 there, and you're gonna rapidly increase your population. So don't be stingy. If you really wanna breed a ton of shrimp like I did, buy a lot. All of our red cherry shrimp started from 20 shrimp that I bought from a wholesaler last year. And we've probably, I think in the last year, we've probably sold at close to 3,000 individual shrimp. And that's just red shrimp. You can see how easy they are to breed. So 20 shrimp, set them up in a tank. I've found that substrate doesn't matter. Like you can see in here, we've got no substrate. Back in the peppermint bristlenose tank, we had no substrate. I found substrate doesn't matter. Now, I've way overcomplicated it with shrimp in the past. I've talked about having plants with them. I've talked about having ornaments, substrates, crushed coral, things like that. I think crushed coral can help the shrimp out, but the most important thing is understanding your water parameters. So here in Brisbane, I'm super, super lucky to have like the ultimate water for breeding Neocaridina shrimp. The difference between Neocaradinas and Caridina shrimp is Caridina shrimp like a much lower pH, softer water, and your Neos like it much harder. So our tap water in Brisbane is pretty hard, and it just seems to be the perfect pH and KH, all that sort of stuff for our shrimp. So yeah, we're super blessed to have the right tap water. These guys like it hard. So if your water is soft, I mean, this is starting to get a little bit too confusing for me. If you've got soft water, you can add crushed coral, but what I recommend is if you want to breed hundreds and thousands of shrimp like I've done, start off with a tank, start off with tap water, like you can see what we've done here, sponge filter, and then I also haven't talked about temperature. I find that these shrimp, the thing about Caridinas that makes it hard for us to breed them here is the temperature of our room just gets too hot. These sit happily at 20 degrees and they sit happily at 15 degrees Celsius, but they'll also sit very happily at 30 degrees. So I find that the temperature doesn't matter too much with Neos. So the reason I keep coming back here, this is probably one of the best examples of how to breed shrimp. You can see we've got the sponge filter going. The temperature of the water is about 23 degrees Celsius, so good temperature, but they would be happily sitting like up there. Those yellow cherries are at 28 or 29 degrees Celsius, still breeding. You can see in here, just because we add botanicals and stuff like that in this tank, this wood's actually gonna drop the pH of our aquarium and it's gonna soak up the KH in here, which isn't good for the shrimp. So the reason these shrimp are doing so good is because over here, we have a little bag of crushed coral. You can see it's obviously very dirty. But this crushed coral, every time that pH starts to drop, so the acids in the water start to form from all the poop, from the decaying Indian almond leaves that we add, things like that, this crushed coral starts to break down and uses up those acids and helps to buffer the water. So that's what I mean when you want to have crushed coral in there. So like, I guess driving points home, start off with a lot of shrimp. That's my first tip. High oxygenation helps a lot. If you're gonna be doing them with something that's gonna, like if you've got issues with your pH, things like that, crushed coral does help a lot. I find it just helps the shrimp in general. Like if I get a batch of shrimp, like 20 shrimp, and I find they're not doing so good, I'll just add crushed coral out of habit, and normally it fixes up a lot of their issues. I think other than that, water change wise, these do get quite a lot of water changes. Sometimes shrimp don't like a lot of water changes. I find as long as it's consistent, they do well. So like these shrimp in here are used to constantly getting water changes from these peppermints because I want to keep breeding these peppermints and they like having water changes. I think one of the most important things as well is the drip acclimating. I'll quickly show you how to do a drip acclimation, just because whatever. What you're gonna do is come over to your tank, the one that they're going into, and you're gonna need some airline hosing or something like this. And we're gonna tie a little knot in the end of our airline hosing. We're gonna start a little siphon, and you can see this water is gonna start to drip out like that. Can you see that? Slower is better. I've seen people drip acclimate shrimp for days, but you can see there that water's dripping. We're just gonna put that in our container with the shrimp and leave it for a couple of hours. I think as a general rule of thumb, normally the shrimp will be okay after an hour, but if you really want to be careful, get a big container and just do it over 3 hours. And then after that, the shrimp would have fully transitioned to the new water and you can just add them into your tank. The reason we're doing this is, I learned this way too late, shrimp go through a molt. So every month, as the shrimp grows, that skeleton on the shrimp becomes too small for its body and it's gonna molt that skeleton and form a new one. This is a very fragile time for a shrimp. And by stressing out the shrimp, it actually forces them into an early molt. So stressing them out by going from the original owner's tank to your tank is a very stressful thing for a shrimp. So if they go into an early molt, they might not die straight away, but a month down the track to 2 weeks down the track, you might start having random shrimp death. So slow and steady is the easiest way to do shrimp. By drip acclimating them, they don't even know they've gone to new water and it stops them from doing that early molt. So this tank up here, it's kind of funny. Do you remember when we went to Glenn's room and he gave me those carbon release? Yeah, so I put them all in here and honestly, I forgot about them. And that's the best thing you can do with your shrimp. This tank's gotten probably a 20% water change each week. We haven't fed this tank the whole time I've had them. So what I did when I added them in here is, like, it was an already established tank, which you're gonna want a nice cycled tank. And there was tons of biofilm in here. They instantly went to town on the biofilm. And another thing I added in here was some botanicals. Botanicals, like, they're not essential, but they obviously seem to work well in here. I added some banana leaves and they slowly broke down and the shrimp just went to town on those banana leaves. But yeah, we haven't fed this tank the whole time and I've only just started to feed this tank. So when it comes to shrimp, if you get like 20 shrimp and they're going into a community tank, don't try and feed the shrimp. Like, they're just gonna go around, they'll eat all the biofilm growing on the glass of the tank. The most important thing I learned from Glenn is with shrimp, you're not actually trying to breed shrimp, you're trying to grow biofilm. So the reason the shrimp over this side, the reason they're doing so well, it's because I don't feed them much. So even a tank like this with probably close to 400, yeah, there'd be close to 400 shrimp in here, I'd say. I'm feeding this twice a week and I'm feeding a tiny little pellet of food. These shrimp, they always look hungry, they're going around the tank. Overfeeding shrimp kills shrimp. It's seriously, underfeed your shrimp. Don't feed your shrimp if you don't need to. Like, if you've got, I think the rule for Glenn was if you've got under 10 shrimp, don't feed. And then once you start to get a few more, feed very lightly and don't feed often. Yeah, I guess those are just some little pieces of advice for how to breed shrimp. If you had to take anything away from this video, do nothing. They're bottom feeders in every single ecosystem across the whole world. You'll find shrimp at the bottom. They're like little cockroaches of the sea and cockroaches of freshwater creeks. So they don't need a lot of attention. Leave them alone. Don't change the water too much. Don't try and do too much. Don't even feed them. They'll breed. Just start with a lot of them. That's the one thing I have to say. Anyways, I hope this video helps someone out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.